Hello everyone, my name is Moises Felipe Silva, and I'm here today to introduce you to our work, whose title is A Generalized Technique for Full-Field Blind Identification of Traveling Waves in Complex Modes from Video Measurements with Hilbert Transform. This work is a result of cooperation across multiple institutions and researchers in US and abroad. The motivation for researching complex modes derives directly from rigid body modes. So rigid body modes appear every time when a rigid structure presents some kind of translational or rotational movement. In this case, the rigid body mode has zero or almost zero amplitude. However, it presents some characteristics in the phase information. This type of mode is very common in rotating structures such as blades, rotors, and wind turbines. Also in fluid dynamics, which are directly tied to traveling waves. And of course, that has also a lot of interest for seismic applications. Before going into the details of our video-based technique, we need to first define the differences between conventional video-based techniques for dynamic analysis and other imaging solutions in the same field. So usually, video-based techniques for SHM are based on a frame-by-frame target tracking, which usually makes use of artificial high-contrast targets. And then, frame-based template matching is used to track the position of this target and then to compute local displacements, which later can be further used for system identification techniques. Recently, a new set of techniques emerged, attempting to perform full-field high-resolution model estimation over video measurements of vibrating structures. This type of technique makes use of each pixel as a displacement sensor, which significantly increases signal-to-noise ratios. After using phase-based optical flow to compute displacement time series from each pixel, dimensionality reduction is carried out on the basis of principal component analysis. Then, blind source separation is used to directly estimate modal coordinates and mode shapes with resolution equal to the number of pixels in the video. With the previous framework in mind, our present work proposes a solution for estimating complex modes. As will be later demonstrated, the usual framework is capable of estimating real modes only. For this case, we propose to compute separate solutions for real and imaginary modes after a data augmentation step using the Hilbert transform. It is quite known that the Hilbert transform provides the analytic signal, which is composed of real and imaginary parts of data. Therefore, we propose to perform the semi-modal identification framework for video over these two sets of data and later use both real and imaginary modes to perform modal reconstruction. The summary of our technique is as follows. First, we perform a video augmentation using Hilbert transform. Then, principal component analysis is performed over both sets of data. And later, we combine both sets of principal components in the same matrix to feed to an algorithm of blind source separation. In this case, we have chosen the complexity pursuit algorithm due to its widely known capability to separate out closely spaced modes. With these individual modes at hand, for each pair of real and imaginary modes, we can then reconstruct the individual vibration motion to perform mode visualization. Using this new framework, we start to verify its applicability to separate simple 1D, standing, and traveling waves. For this specific purpose, we have positioned 50 sensors to capture the motion of the two superimposed waves, and then later we use displacement measurements as input to our proposed video-based technique. As a result of the dimensionality reduction, the first four components embedded approximately 91% of the whole variance for the set of measurements, and those are used for further processing. So, when we attempt to visualize the resulting four principal components, it's pretty clear that there is still a mixture of modes with quite different faces. However, these modes are completely disentangled with the use of the complexity pursuit. And at this point, it is important to highlight that in order to reconstruct the standing wave, only one of the two real modes is needed. In the other case, for the traveling wave, both modes indicated as complex are mandatory for mode reconstruction. The end result, when reconstructing each individual mode, is pretty clear that the proposed method successfully decomposed the individual standing and traveling waves, which indicates its capability to decompose at the same time real and complex modes. For the sake of clarity, recall that the goal of this experiment is to perform initial attempts of decomposing phenomena exhibiting complex mode, which is the case of traveling waves. Moving forward in the description of our experiments, we simulated 2D traveling waves with arbitrarily chosen frequencies, but without any kind of phase offset. In fact, we simulated 3D traveling waves, and then rotated the whole camera view to simulate the conditions when using an ordinary digital camera. Later, using the video with the 2D view, we estimated the corresponding Hilbert transform, here in the form of a video for the sake of graphical visualization. Following the proposed framework, from each real and imaginary data, four principal components were estimated, and once again, as previously, they still a mixture of different modes. Only with the use of the complexity pursuit-based blind source separation, we were able to decouple two pairs of individual modes. With these modes at hand, we could then perform the reconstruction of the dynamics for each traveling wave and to perform 2D and also 3D visualizations. To summarize the results for the 2D traveling wave simulation, the current slide shows 2D and 3D visualizations of the input data, its Hilbert transform, and the resulting decompositions. Moreover, the estimated complex mode coordinates are also shown along. Alright. A research question may appear from the previous demonstrations. What happens if the Hilbert transform is not used? What happens if one only uses the earlier proposed full-field modal identification algorithm? To answer these questions, the current slide shows the resulting decomposition using the full-field modal identification algorithm without using the Hilbert transform, and also the results when using our proposed technique. From these, it's clear to know that the reconstructed modes by the early technique are simply decomposition of standing waves, proving its capability to only extract real modes. On the other hand, when using the Hilbert-based technique, the individual traveling waves can be clearly visualized, indicating its suitability. Finally, the last result comes from a laboratory test. In this case, our goal was to demonstrate that since the Hilbert transform provides an imaginary set of data that is somewhat related to the phase information, our technique should be capable to decomposing vibration motion for multiple structures across the same video. For this, we have recorded a video where three different cantilever beams are excited using a model hammer. Later, along with its Hilbert transform, dimensionality reduction is carried out, from which four principal components are estimated for each set of real and imaginary data, from which one more time we can verify a mixture of different modes. After blind source separation, we were able to estimate for each vibrating beam two individual modes. In some cases, motion artifacts that is not structurally a vibrating beam is seen moving along some specific beam, as is the case of the shadows in the background of the top beam and the wire tying the center beam, revealing subtle motions that otherwise could be hardly tied back to the motion of that specific beam. Further envisioned applications involve the monitoring of gallium melted pools, crucial to some aerospace structures, demanding also the use of neuromorphic imagers. With the advent of lighter and dynamic point clouds, we can imagine this type of technique proposed today to work along. In future, it could also be the case that a new set of algorithms to integrate lidar data and other types of imagery collected from an UAV could benefit of the use of our Hilbert-based framework. That's it for today. In the name of all co-authors, I hope to have give you a new set of ideas that could help improve your own work. Thanks for watching.